Good morning, everyone. Shavua Tov. Welcome to our Sunday morning Parsha class, the Parsha of Vayigash. Good morning to all those who joined us. Good morning, Susan and Tom and Lynn and Dylan and Diane and Dina and Michael. Good to see you all. Parsha Vayigash. We just finished a whirlwind of a week, a week of Hanukkah. Was that a beautiful celebration? Lots going on. And we're living off that energy, that boost that we had over the week. And we should have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead of us. We'll discuss the Parsha of Vayigash, where we're up to in the story of Joseph and his brothers. And then perhaps we could connect this to the last day of this week. Today is the 5th day of Teves. The Friday of this week is going to be the 10th day of Teves. And the 10th day of Teves is a fasting on the Jewish calendar. And we'll talk about that as well, perhaps a connection between that and the weekly Parsha. So the Parsha opens up at an extremely dramatic moment, perhaps the most dramatic moment in all of the Torah's stories of the Torah. It's right at the point where Joseph is about to reveal himself. And the lead up to that revelation is when Judah approaches Joseph, and gives him a mouthful. He gives him a speech, a powerful speech. So the background to the story is that we end off last week's Parsha, the Parsha of Miketz, with the story of Joseph, where the brothers bring the youngest Benjamin, the youngest brother, to Egypt at Joseph's command, and he meets him. They have a wonderful lunch together. They have a wonderful time together, and then Joseph fills their bags, and he tells his servant, which happens to be, I believe, his son Menashe. He tells him to put my special goblet in the bag, in the sack of Benjamin, of Binyamin. And then they leave, and then he chases them. He says, "What is this? Why did you steal this goblet?" They say, "You stole the goblet? Of course we wouldn't. Even the money that you gave us back, we brought back. Of course we wouldn't steal a goblet. Whoever stole the goblet will die." That's what they say. So really, okay, they decided to check the bags. Started from the first, Reuven, they go down to the last. Binyamin, up, we found the goblets. And they realize this was a setup. So, I mean, obviously they didn't steal the goblet. Say, listen, we'll be slaves. Says, no reason to be slaves. Just that one brother who had just Binyamin, he'll be the slave. They all come back to Joseph, and here is where Joseph, here's where the brothers approach Joseph, and Judah, who was the fourth of the tribes. He approaches Joseph, and he speaks his heart, and he says, "What is this?" He starts giving up the whole story. What is this that from the get-go, from the start, you treated us weird. You treated us like trying to make trouble. You're accusing us of being spies. You're asking us about our family. You're asking us about our siblings who didn't come. You want us to bring them down. You're asking us about our father. Our father does not want to send him. Our father is feeling that if he sends him, he's gonna die. Why going through this? Like, what's the point of all of this? And when Yehuda finishes this whole speech and talking about how difficult this was for their father, for the father to send the youngest child with them, and if they don't come back with him, this is like the worst thing that the father can handle. Joseph breaks. This is the tipping point. This is where Joseph says, "This is already too much for me. I can't handle this." And he says, "Okay, you got me here." And he reveals himself to them. He says, "Ani Yosef ha'oid avichai." I am Joseph. Is our father still alive? Right? And the commentaries that ask over here, what, Joseph doesn't know that his father is still alive? They've been talking. He just heard a whole rant, a whole speech that Judah gave about his father. Of course he knows that Jacob is still alive. And some explain that his question was, how is it possible? How is he still alive? After so many years of suffering, how is he doing? How is he still alive? He's asking about how is he doing, and he continues to talk about that. Ultimately, everything was planned for Hashem. Don't be upset. I'm not going to take revenge, because that was obviously the first thing that the brothers thought about. Oh, Joseph, this is him. Now he's in a position of power. Now he's going to take revenge of what we did to him. But no, it's all from God. God sent me here. God sent me here in order to provide for the region and for the family. And Pharaoh hears about this as well. Joseph sends his brothers back home to tell their father to bring their father back to Egypt. He sends a lot of gifts. Some of the gifts that he sends are these gifts, wagons filled with gifts, and the wagon was like a sign, a hint that Joseph was sending to his father, that the word wagon in Hebrew is agala, which means a wagon. The subject, the topic that Joseph was studying with his father Jacob before he was sent to his brothers, the last time they studied together, they were studying the laws of a egla arufa, which is the laws of what happens if you find someone that was killed outside of a city and you don't know who killed them. It's a mitzvah that we have later in the Torah, but they were studying it, and in Hebrew it's called an egla. So there was like an egla agala. He was kind of sending a hint to his father that this is Joseph. I even remember what we studied last 22 years ago. And the Torah and the Parsha continues that Jacob heard the news. He had a new boost of life, of energy, hearing this report. He actually heard it from his granddaughter, from Sarah, because they wanted to kind of make sure he doesn't get too excited too fast, because that could be a risk to his health. And eventually, Jacob comes down to Egypt. He meets Pharaoh. He gives Pharaoh a blessing, and he settles in a place called Goshen, a region in Egypt, and he's there. And we know that the blessing came that as soon as Jacob came back to Egypt, the famine was over. Even though it was supposed to be 7 years, it was less than that because of Jacob's presence in Egypt. And the story continues that he lived for 17 years, the last 17 years of his life, which were the best 17 years of his life. It was years that he was no drama, no fighting, no wars, no problem with Lavan, no problem with his brother Asa, who wasn't crying over Joseph. 17 best years of his life was where he living in Egypt together with his family, and that's where the Parsha ends. And next week's Parsha is where, before he passes away, he gives the blessings to his children. That's the next week's Parsha. But I want to go back to the beginning, the first verse of the Parsha. Page 298, 299 in the Good Chumash. I want to speak about Judah for a few moments. Let's read this inside. Vayigash elav Yehuda vayomer. Yehuda approached Joseph, and he said. Now, something that I heard from my father growing up, that was something a little cute. For those of us who have read the Torah, maybe out of Bar Mitzvah, and we know a little bit about the signs, about the tune that we sing, the trup that we sing the Torah in when we read it in the shul. So if you notice, in these 4 words, Vayigash elav, the name of the trup is Kadma Va'azlo. Vayigash elav Yehuda vayomer. Kadma Azla, and then the trup on Yehuda is Revi. Each trup has a name in Hebrew. But interestingly, there's meaning to each of these names of the trup. So Vayigash elav Kadma Va'azla means he stood up and he went. And then what I heard from my father is that who stood up and went? Judah. He got up and he approached Joseph. He walked towards Joseph, starting to speak to him. And Joseph says, Yehuda, Revi, you're only the 4th. Why are you opening your mouth? You're the fourth child. You're not the oldest. There are 10 other brothers here, 11 other brothers. Why are you the one talking? The Midrash gives us lots of drama at this moment when Yehuda was approaching Joseph. The Torah gives us only a little bit of the story, but the Midrash gives us the great detail of what happened at that moment. When he roared, when he came to Joseph, the entire Egypt heard. He stomped his foot, and their entire building shook. The walls were caving in. There was blood coming out of his eyes. I mean, this is wartime, and Joseph was fighting back, and Joseph's son Menashe was also there showing his strength. It was powerful. Judah, Yehuda was threatening to kill Joseph. And he says, you're just like Pharaoh. I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill Pharaoh. We're going to wage war. It's either we take home our brother, Binyamin, or we're fighting Egypt. We're not letting this happen. We came to get food, but if we need to, we're going to wage war. And boy, were they able to, because the tribes were mighty men. We know what happened in Shechem. And Joseph told them that. He said, listen, I know what happened to Shechem. I know that two of you massacred us. And you want to do this over here as well? And they said, absolutely. If you're not giving us Binyamin back, we are here to take him back, come what may. So there was a lot of dialogue between the two of them. And eventually, when Joseph heard all about his father and how difficult this was for his father, it broke Joseph, and he revealed himself. And perhaps this was part of the plan, because Joseph wanted to see how someone is standing up for his brother. And that also kind of hit home to see how previously they did not stand up for their brother, for Joseph himself, and now they're standing up for Binyamin, willing to go to war for him. Oh, so he sees that they have truly repented, they have changed, and therefore he was able to reveal himself to them. So, interestingly, Yehuda, who was the fourth of the brothers, he's the one who really opened his mouth. So why Yehuda? Why was he the one who spoke up? There was Reuven, who was the eldest. Maybe he felt more responsible. There's Shimon and Levi, who we know are very active and take initiative when they need to. And then there's Yehuda. He's the fourth. Why was he the one to speak? Now, if you remember from last week's Parsha, there was a moment where Jacob was fighting back. He did not want to send Binyamin. He was very upset. Why did he even mention that we have a younger brother? What's the point of this? I can't send him. His brother died on, Joseph, right? When he was on the way, when he was traveling, I'm afraid about Binyamin. And they tried to convince him. They tried to convince Jacob. And what eventually won him over, what eventually allowed Jacob to give in, to allow Binyamin to go, was actually Yehuda himself. Yehuda says, Anochi arvenu. I'm going to guarantee. I guarantee that Benjamin will be returned. I guarantee it. So therefore, he's the one who spoke up. I was the guarantor, right? I'm responsible for him. Well, that only answers half the question, because the other question is, well, why was Yehuda the one who guaranteed him? Like, there were many other brothers. Why was he the one to say, Anochi arvenu, I will be the guarantor for Binyamin?
He was in conspiracy to hurt Joseph.
Interestingly, we find that Yehuda has a future as well. Yehuda, even though he's the fourth, he becomes the family, the royal family. The kings of Judaism, of Jewish people, are generally from Yehuda, the house of Yehuda. Next week's Parsha, we have where Jacob is blessing the children. The first three, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, get criticized. And Yehuda, the fourth, gets a beautiful blessing. La Yasser Sheva Yehuda. Yehuda was always going to be the one to rule. They're going to be the ruling family. And that's how it was. After the first king, King Saul, which came from Benjamin, you had King David and the house of David. The descendants of David are all from the house of Yehuda. Mashiach ben David, right? The Messiah, Mashiach, is going to be from the descendant of the house of David. So, house of David is from the house of Judah. So we see that the family of Yehuda becomes the ruling family. What is it about Yehuda? What is it that he was what merited to get this blessing for future generations? And why did he always take that initiative? Why was he always standing up, and speaking for his brothers?
He spared Joseph.
The truth is, one question answers the other question. Why was he chosen to be the family of royalty, of kings, of leadership? It's because he always took that initiative. In other words, Yehuda wasn't perfect.
Right.
He made mistakes. We know he made mistakes. We made mistakes. He had the big mistake with Tamar, right? He made mistakes. He wasn't perfect. He sold Joseph. Could have saved him. He sold him. But at the same time, what we find is that he also takes responsibility. He's the person who cares about another person and owns up, takes responsibility. We actually find this within the stories of Judah in previous parshas, where he has perhaps some weaknesses, but within the weaknesses we see how he is a caring person. We had the story of Tamar. If you're familiar with the story, is that Judah, basically, after the story of selling his brother, he basically separated from his brothers for a while, and he has 3 sons. 2 of his sons married a woman by the name of Tamar. The first son died. The second son marries him. Leverage marriage. Second son dies. He has a third son, but he doesn't want his third son to marry the same woman. So he tells Tamar, he's too young. Maybe later, we'll take a break from marriage. So she leaves, and then she hears news that Yehuda is coming to town. So she dresses up like a harlot at the fork of the road, and Judah lives with her, has a night with her. And then 3 months later, Judah hears that she's pregnant. So she's pregnant. What is this? So he says that she must be killed. She must be burnt. What happened was he gave her, for collateral, he gave her like his staff and his ring. So she does not say, "Hey, listen, it's Judah who I lived with." She just says, "Whoever this belongs to, this is the person who pregnated me." And Judah could have ignored it, right? Imagine that. The rabbi puts out a verdict against someone, then finds out that he is the one that's the cause of it, right? So Judah could have ignored it, but he didn't. He said, "You know what? She's right." So he almost like embarrassed himself in order to save another person. Even when he decided to sell Joseph instead of saving him, but the fact that he was initially they were going to kill him, and they didn't kill him, he said, "Listen, let's sell him." Even though he knew that selling Joseph may mean that eventually he may take revenge against him. But he cared for Joseph. So we find time and again that he cared for another person, right? With Benjamin, he's the one that came up and said, "You know what, I'll guarantee." He stood up for his brother Benjamin. Ultimately, it's the idea that I can't let things go by, even though I am not responsible. It's not my headache. It's not my fault. It's not my responsibility. I still take that initiative. That is who Yehuda was. And that is what we need in a leader. A leader may say, "You deal with it." That's not a true leader. A leader has to take responsibility. A leader has to say, "If this happened under my watch, I have to do something. It's my responsibility." Exactly. I mean, I'm just what comes to mind is the terrible, terrible tragedy that happened in Israel on Friday. If you follow me in the news, where during the war in Gaza, I mean, just to follow what's going on there, it's so difficult for our soldiers. Such difficult decision they have to make in a split second because the terrorists are really playing with them, dressing up in civilian clothes, you know, putting recordings of babies crying, trying to lure the soldiers in, and booby trapping the places. I mean, it's very, very difficult to know who is a terrorist, who's a civilian, who is innocent, who's guilty. I mean, it's very, very difficult. So we had the story, the incident, unfortunately, on Friday, where there are three hostages who were actually were able to escape with all the chaos in Shajaya, however you pronounce it, where they were able to escape. And as they were escaping, they were so close to being freed, they were shot at by the Israelis, thinking that they were terrorists. Terrible, terrible incident. But what happened was the generals in the Israeli army and in the cabinet, they all said, we are responsible. They took responsibility because at the end of the day, this terrible tragedy happened under our watch. There was a mistake. Whoever actually made that mistake, at the end of the day, we are responsible. That's a true leader. Take responsibility and do something about it. Not say, you figure that out. It's not my problem. That's who Yehuda was. In Israel today, there's a law that's called Lo Ta'amod Al Dam Re'echa. Don't stand idle on your brother's blood, which is a law which in America we call it the Good Samaritan law, which is not a law that you need to do something, but it's only if you do something, it protects you. In Israel, if you stand by, if you're walking down the street and someone says, "Oh, my heart, I'm having heart pains, call 911," and you walk away, you can sit in prison for a year. In the United States, it's completely legal. You have your rights to ignore someone who is pleading for help. There's no responsibility to go out of your way to help another person. We have our rights. It's a nice thing. You do it, you're a good Samaritan. Great. But there's no responsibility. You're sitting on a train. Recently, I had the story. They're sitting on the train, and someone else is beating up another person, and no one does anything. I'm sitting on my train. I'm going home from work. I'm on my phone. I'm reading a book. I don't have the responsibility to get involved to save another person. That wasn't Yehuda. Yehuda was the one who said, I see something, say something. I see something, I'm going to take that responsibility. He felt responsible for things around him. And therefore, he's the one who stood up, and he was the one who was chosen to have that leadership position. His family always had a leadership position, the ruling family in the Jewish people, because of that trait that he had, the trait of responsibility and caring for another person. On Friday, this week, is going to be the 10th of Teves. The 10th of Teves is a fast day in the Jewish calendar. And historically, what happened on this day is that when the Jewish people were living in Jerusalem, the Babylonian Empire surrounded, they made a siege over Jerusalem for almost 3 years, 2.5 years. And that was the beginning of the end. It was the beginning of the destruction of the temple. The Talmud goes into great detail of what happened during this time of the siege. But what's interesting is, just a parenthetic comment. You know, Jewish people today, we are every year on the 10th of Teves, we fast to remember the siege that happened 2,500 years ago. If you look in history, there were other similar types of sieges, right? This was a common war tactic, right? You surround the city, you basically you suffocate them because there's no food coming in, there's no whatever, there's no commerce, there's no economy, there's no right, and basically, eventually they're so weakened where you're able to just barge in and take over. It's happened often. It happened in Babylonia, it happened in Rome, it happened in Greece. In wars, it was a common occurrence. But who knows about the other things? Who knows about the other sieges that happened around the world 3,000 years ago? If you're a good historian that you like to read old history, okay, so maybe you know about it. But the Jewish people, every child knows about the siege of Jerusalem. The fact that we always commemorate what happened in our past keeps it alive. So today we know about the story, and we all know about it. Our school children know about it because past they talk about it. What does this mean to us? How do we change this? What was the cause for it? So the Talmud, when we use in Hebrew, when we describe what happened on this day, we use the word Samach Melech Bavel al Yerushalayim, which means that the king of Bavel, of Babylonia, surrounded Jerusalem. But the Hebrew word that we use is Samach. Samach is not your typical word used for a siege. Samach usually means to lean on. Somech noflim. Smicha, to lean, to help, to be a support. That's what samach means. So why do we use the word samach in reference to this siege on Jerusalem? So just last night I saw a very interesting thing from that the Rebbe wrote. We use the word samach because there was an intention over here. There was a hope. What happens is, one of the causes for the destruction of the temple was the lack of unity, the infighting within the Jewish people. And if you read the history, it was very true. Jewish people were fighting. We weren't getting along with each other. Lots of infighting. And the Talmud talks about this in great length, and there were different people, different groups, and we couldn't get along. And because of that, that was one of the causes of the destruction of the temple. Sometimes, unfortunately, we need a terrible blow from the outside to get us to come together. And that was the hope. God said, you know what? Maybe if I bring the siege on Jerusalem, maybe that will unite the Jewish people. Samach Melech Bavel. He brought the king of Bavel to hopefully cause the Jewish people to support each other. Maybe they will get along with each other. That because of the siege, because of this great, terrible situation the Jewish people are going to find themselves in, they're going to say, you know what? Let's unite forces. Let's figure this out. We have different opinions, but we can get along with each other. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And because that did not happen, the destruction of the temple was forthcoming. And we remember this years later, because how do we correct this? Because we're not just remembering the atrocities that happened to the Jewish people, but we're also remembering the cause of it, and we could correct that today. We shouldn't make the same mistake. And the way we correct that is samach. Let's support each other. And I think we see this today with, unfortunately, what's happening in Israel, which it brought unity amongst the Jewish people. In Israel, specifically, politically, there was lots of fighting. And I'm not saying we all see eye to eye now in Israeli politics and how to run the country, but there's definitely the sense of unity. Let's not be just fighting at each other, killing each other. Let's work together to try to work things out. And around the world, Jews around the world, we see this unity amongst Jewish people. And ultimately, we shouldn't just pat ourselves on the back and say, you know what, this is great. Now we can go to sleep. We could always add. We could always increase our support to each other, increase our unity. And ultimately, that will bring about the full salvation in Israel and of Jewish people in general with the coming of Mashiach. So this is really very much connected to the story of the Parsha, because the story of the Parsha is, we're focusing, the hero of the Parsha is Yehuda. The hero is the person who wasn't just going to sit idly by, but was going to take initiative and say, I see something, I'm going to get involved, I'm going to help, I'm going to care for another person. And that brings that unity, ultimately brought the unity of the brothers and Jacob, and it will bring the unity amongst the Jewish people, and it will bring Mashiach maybe today. So I'll leave you with that. A quick story. Quick story. I always like to finish with the story. So the story is, there was this chassid from the dynasty of Gur. Gur is a Polish, I believe, or European chassidus, and there was a chassid who was this is going back in the 1940s. He moved to New Zealand, which was kind of unheard of at the time for a religious Jew to move to New Zealand. He moves to New Zealand and he's involved in the textile business. he was able to produce a certain unique type of material that he used for special clothing, and he moved there for a number of years. And being a chassid in New Zealand was very, very difficult. And the truth is, he kind of dropped a lot of his Judaism. He kind of dressed like a regular guy. He wasn't really wearing the Hasidic garb, and he was, I'm not sure what state of observance he was in during those years living in New Zealand. At one point, he has a daughter who lived in Brooklyn, New York. So he travels to Brooklyn to visit his daughter. And his daughter lived in Crown Heights in 1940. And he comes to the apartment building where his daughter lives, and he goes into a elevator together with another man, another Hasidic Jew. And the Hasidic Jew turns to him and says, "Oh, shalom aleichem, how are you? Where do you come from?" "Oh, I come from New Zealand. I'm on business over there for the last few years. I'm here visiting my daughter." So this young man, this young Hasidic Jew tells him, "You're in New Zealand. Is there a mikvah in New Zealand?" "There are some Jews there, right? Maybe you could." "Oh, well, is there a mikvah there?" He says, "No, there isn't a mikvah there. I'm only there on business. I'll be there for another few years." He wasn't that observant. He wasn't using the mikvah. His wife wasn't using the mikvah. He kind of brushed it off. Okay, very nice. You're asking about a mikvah in New Zealand. Later, his daughter tells him, "You know who that was? That was the Rabbi Schneerson, the Chabad Rebbe, his son-in-law." This is before while his father was still alive. He was a young son-in-law. That's his son-in-law. He's he just moved to town. He came from Europe in 1941. Wow, interesting. Okay. 40 years go by. And this man left New Zealand and he moved back to whether it was Israel or Brooklyn, wherever it was, but he rekindled his Jewish spark. He got more involved in his Judaism again. He started wearing the Hasidic garb. He had his beard, he had his peyot, he had his white shirt. He was dressed very differently than he did in 1940. This is in the 1980s, late 1980s. And he's visiting New York again, visiting his daughter. He tells his daughter, "You know what? Why don't we go by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Chabad Rebbe? We know on Sundays he gives dollars for charity. So the opportunity to get a blessing. Let's go by." Sure. So they wait in line, a few hours of waiting in line, and he comes to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe sees him. And he doesn't say anything. He just, like most people, they just take the dollar and they get the blessing. And the Rebbe says, "No, so is there a mikveh in New Zealand yet?" He was shocked. I mean, he didn't know what to say. He could just, and the line moves on, right? So he continues going. He later told this to his Rebbe, the Ger Rebbe. And he says, "Wow, you heard what happened with the Lubavitcher Rebbe? 40 years later, asking me about the mikveh in New Zealand. He recognized me after so many years. I look so different. It's 40 years. He meets thousands of people a day. I mean, it's crazy." So the Ger Rebbe says, "This that he recognized you, that's not a big deal to me." Okay, so he has, maybe either a good memory or he has Ruach HaKodesh. That's not what's so surprising to me. What's surprising to me is that for 40 years, he's been thinking about, is there a mikveh in New Zealand? What are the Jews doing in New Zealand? Is there a mikveh for them? Someone who cares about not just your neighbor, about your friend, about your cousin, about your relative, cares about someone across the globe. That is a true leader. And that is what Yehuda was, and that is what we can learn from them, to be caring about others, whether we know them or not, have that type of unity where we feel close, we feel like a guarantor for another person. So I'll leave you with that. Have a Shavuot, have a good week, and I hope to see you soon. I see Susan has a question.